This is Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, and this is a breaking news alert. The Department of Justice has just filed a notice of appeal and motion for partial stay in response to Florida District Court Judge Aileen Cannon's order granting a special master and enjoining the Department of Justice from utilizing documents obtained in its search warrant of Mar-A-Lago on August 8th in connection with its criminal investigation into the Espionage Act, obstruction, and other crimes relating to Donald Trump stealing top secret information. The government could still pursue its investigation but couldn't utilize those documents, which for all intensive purposes will stop the government from really being able to conduct its investigation the way it needs to. And so this was really a brilliant move by the government in filing this motion for partial stay, because it really boxes in Donald Trump and Judge Aileen Cannon to some of the critical issues here. I'm going to explain why this motion for partial stay essentially baits Donald Trump into having to admit that he committed the crimes he's being accused of, if indeed he's going to file an opposition to the motion for partial stay. But first, the notice of appeal is a notice. It's just a one-pager, and it lets the district court know, it lets Judge Aileen Cannon know, Judge, we are going to be appealing your order to the Court of Appeals, in this case, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, the Department of Justice recognizes that the appeal process could take time, and they recognize that one of the things that Judge Cannon and Trump probably want to do here is delay, right? That's Trump's MO. So the motion they filed with Judge Cannon is a motion for partial stay, not a complete stay, but a motion for partial stay, saying, Judge, very surgically, as it relates to your order as to the 100 confidential documents that we obtained during the lawful search of Mar-A-Lago pursuant to a valid search warrant, those documents should not be subject to your order where a special master would review records, or certainly we, the Department of Justice, should not be enjoined or stopped from utilizing those records, just those confidential records in connection with our criminal investigation. And why this is so brilliant is that if Trump wants to oppose this motion now, what Trump will have to do is say, those confidential records are mine. I am making a claim to a possessory ownership of confidential records. That's the only way Trump could oppose the motion. And by doing that, he's saying that he stole the confidential records, and he's admitting to their very existence in a judicial document. And it also forces Judge Aileen Cannon to not kind of conflate these issues. Like in her other horrible order, she kind of conflated executive privilege and conflated possessory ownership over documents. And she tried to act like there may be executive privilege here, which there absolutely isn't. And she doesn't understand the way warrants work. And she's saying, well, maybe there are some documents that may belong to Trump here that are not part of these classified documents. So the government said, fine, look, we're going to appeal your whole order, because the way warrants work is where there are documents that are commingled with the criminal items that are also seized. It's Warrant 101. It's criminal law 101 that we as the federal government are permitted to obtain and seize all of those records. And here, the thousands of records, some of which were not confidential, of course, are government records. We own them. But fine, Judge, you want those to go to the special master. We're going to appeal that to the 11th Circuit. But for purposes of this surgical motion we're filing, we just want to focus on the confidential records, because there could be no claim ever under your order or under any argument that's be made that the Department of Justice is not allowed to look at its own confidential records. And again, for Trump, this is why Trump's boxed in. For him to oppose this, Trump now has to say, those confidential records, I am declaring a possessory interest in, which would be admitting to the crime. And Judge Aileen Cannon has to basically say, I don't care about national security. She has to make that kind of finding. I think that those confidential records, that subset of records, you should be enjoined from reviewing those records. And so Judge Aileen Cannon would kind of be flushed out here and exposed as well for her corruption. And so, again, the notice of appeal, a one-pager, the motion for partial stay, the motion's about 23 pages. And the motion starts by saying, Judge, we're filing this with you first because that's the proper procedure. We have to file it with the district judge, but we're not messing around here, Judge. So if you don't respond to our motion for partial stay by September 15th, we're going to go to the 11th Circuit, the Court of Appeals, right away. We're going to play nice now because we have to. We'll file this motion for partial stay with you. We also want to kind of bait Trump is what they're doing there as well. But if we don't hear from you or there's nothing that happens before September 15th, we are going to the 11th Circuit and we're going to file this motion for partial stay there, pending their overall appeal of your horrible order, which completely should all be overturned. We don't just think that we're entitled to these 100 confidential records. We're entitled to all of it. Every part of this process is correct, but let's urgently focus on what the issues here. And so there are three main arguments that the government makes in this motion about why a motion for partial stay as it relates to these 100 documents, which should not be subject to the special master, they argue, and which they should not be enjoined from reviewing right now. So they say, first, we're definitely likely to succeed on the merits here. These documents belong to us. There's never been a ruling in the history of the law, in American law, that says that executive branch documents can't be reviewed by the executive branch. Judge, we are the executive branch. Those are our documents. You are saying that we can't look at our own documents. You're stopping us from doing that and making us show our documents to a special master. Those documents are ours. And to the extent, Judge, you want to claim, or Donald Trump wants to claim, that he's got other records that are intermingled here, fine. We deserve those too. Those are evidence of the crime. But setting that aside, for purposes of this motion to stay, we just want to review our classified records. So, Trump, are you going to argue that those classified records are yours? Judge, are you going to say that those classified records are him? It narrows the issue brilliantly. The next argument the government makes is that the government and the public would suffer irreparable and perhaps immediate harm if their investigation is put on pause. One of the issues here that lots of people have asked is, well, is it possible that Trump has other confidential records in other locations? And what the government actually says in this motion for partial stay is, it's one of the things we're investigating. We need to look at our own documents. They're our own classified records, but we need to determine if any other records are missing to try to find these other top secret, sensitive, compartmented information, which could imperil not just the criminal investigation, but our very national security, Judge. And then what they also say is, Judge, you don't really understand, and it's clear from your order, and they say it much more nicely than this, the way the government even works. Like the fact, Judge, that you said that ODNI, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, can continue its review, but the DOJ and FBI can't look at the records. Like, you don't understand the way the intelligence community works, because the FBI, guess what, is a member of the intelligence community, and the FBI works with ODNI, and there's a symbiotic relationship. You saying the FBI can't look at its own records, but ODNI would compromise the overall investigation. You can't just segregate it like that and say ODNY is walled off from the FBI. And then what the government finally says is there is no harm to Donald Trump if you allow us to look at these classified records. There's no harm because it doesn't belong to him, number one. Number two, there's no harm to him with these top secret classified documents because he's not the president anymore. Number three, we've already looked at these records. So we've seen these records. We know what they say. And so you want us to what? Blind our eyes to our own records so that someone who doesn't own the records can do what with the records? He won't be able to get the records back. So what is the harm? We've seen these records. We need to complete our criminal investigation because the lives of the American people are on the line here. And then one of the things the government points out as well is when a grand jury subpoena issued to Trump in May, which he violated, obviously, because they signed declarations saying they returned all the records, which they clearly didn't, because top secret, sensitive, compartmented information, including we're learning nuclear secrets, were found during the August 8th search. But Trump never asserted executive privilege. He never filed objection, executive privilege. He never filed what's called a motion to quash, which would be a motion in court saying, I have executive privilege to these records. So what the government's saying is you can't belatedly make a objection or a privilege objection. One, it doesn't even exist. But at this stage, you never made the objections. And then, of course, the government says clearly you don't have executive privilege where you are a former president. Executive privilege is held by the current executive, period. And past presidents can't claim that. And certainly past presidents cannot claim that over the executive branch looking at its own documents. And judge, you are preventing us, the Department of Justice, the executive branch, who owns these documents, from looking at our own documents. How insane is that? And so this motion for partial stay truly schooled the judge. And as you go into it, them putting, quotes on certain words, and like they just demonstrated that the judge literally has no clue what she's talking about. But the most important part here, though, by narrowing the focus and saying, judge, fine, you want to have stuff in front of a special master, you want to talk about all this other stuff, like you're completely wrong, but we'll deal with that at the 11th Circuit. We're appealing that. The appeal is going to take time, but this motion for partial stay, which deals with kind of the urgent emergency matter, so we want you to respond by September 15th, there could be no claim that these 100 classified documents, which we already reviewed, belongs to Donald Trump. And they're saying, really, Trump? Let's see you claim that you own those 100 classified records. And judge, let's see you make an order that says he owns those 100 classified records, or he can make a claim that he has a stake in those 100 classified records and make the claim, judge or Trump, that we, the government, we, the people, we, the Department of Justice, don't own our own classified material. So it's such a brilliant surgical motion, and we'll see what happens next. But whether Judge Aileen Cannon grants this, I'm fairly confident the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals will grant it as it relates as narrowly defined like this, so that the government can continue its investigation. And so all this motion for judicial oversight that Trump filed, all of this, the corrupt judge, Aileen Cannon and her rulings, all of this stuff is completely backfiring and blowing up in their faces, because what they should have just done is shut up. Let the Department of Justice continue its investigation, have a criminal defense attorney be cooperative where they could be, focus on trying to deal with stuff behind the scenes. But now all of this is being aired out because Trump wanted it to be aired out. And now what the Department of Justice just said is, all right, your move. Claim these documents belong to you. Claim that they're yours. Admit you will be admitting to the crime. Checkmate. Checkmate. This has been Mycelis from the MeidasTouch Network. Hey, make sure you hit the subscribe button now. We also just started a Patreon account at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. That's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. The community is growing, so make sure you join there. Hit subscribe now as well here. You could also find more legal analysis like this at the MeidasTouch podcast and the legal podcast I do, Legal AF. Hit the subscribe button here right now. I'm Ben Mycelis, and I'll see you next time.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So please make sure you check out our best-selling shirt and our best-selling gear, the unapologetically pro-democracy gear. And hey, while you're at it, make sure you check out my favorite shirt and one of our most famous designs, It Wasn't Rigged, You're Just a Loser, at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.